This is the true story of an American millionaire who killed his wife by stabbing her with a knife outside of his luxurious home. After a trial that shocked the whole country, the millionaire was found guilty of the brutal murder. The millionaire couldn't escape the law despite being wealthy and powerful. He will now spend decades in prison for his horrible crime. Stay tuned to learn more about this shocking case and how the victim finally got justice. This story shows that no amount of money or power can keep someone from dealing with the results of their deeds. Harold Landry was an American engineer who made much money in the oil and gas business. He was found guilty of killing his 38-year-old British wife, Lucy, after she began seeing an old friend on Facebook. It was really horrible. She was attacked in the kitchen, on the stairs of the first floor, and in the hall, before Landry caught her running for help to their next-door neighbor's house and stabbed her 23 times in the yard. As she fell to the ground with the kitchen knife stuck in her side, Landry delicately walked away. As the investigation unfolded, details of Landry's jealousy and possessiveness emerged, painting a chilling picture of a man consumed by rage and obsession. Lucy's senseless death serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of domestic violence and the devastating consequences it can have. Later, police arrested Landry for the brutal murder of Lucy, and he was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He had denied murder but admitted manslaughter, saying he was guilty because of provocation. Landry's trial shed light on the prevalence of domestic violence in society and the urgent need for more resources and support for victims. Lucy's tragic story also sparked a nationwide conversation about the importance of recognizing and addressing warning signs of abuse before it's too late. After he was found guilty, it came out that he had been accused of killing a love rival in the U.S. before. He was convicted of aggravated violence in October 1994 after he shot another man in Covington, Louisiana, and was given a suspended term. Chris Price only escaped the 1994 killing because it took place in the shadow of a hospital. Landry had been seeing Price's wife, Geraldine, whom he had hired as a babysitter. In February, Mr. Price came home to see Landry dropping his wife off after a day out together in New Orleans, and picked this time to approach him. Price turned his car down the street, cutting Landry off at a set of traffic lights, and got out of his car. As he reached his foe, Landry pulled out his gun and shot Price through the neck, severing his artery and vocal cord and leaving his target helpless for months. Landry was charged with second-degree attempted murder, but a jury reduced the sentence to aggravated battery. He was given 5 years of hard labor, and a $5,000 fine, and 300 days of community work. Price sued, and they finally settled out of court for an estimated $500,000. Landry left America in 2000 after meeting his future wife, Lucy, on ICQ's internet chat site, and later moved over to set up a home with her in Coventry, West Midlands. The pair married in 2002, moved to a fancy 3-story house on the private Besford Court estate near Pershore, Worse, and looked to have a happy marriage. But the 24-year age gap and Landry's controlling nature left his wife increasingly lonely and disillusioned. The pair were heavy drinkers, and neighbors reported hearing aggressive, alcohol-fueled fights as their relationship fell into anger and recrimination. By mid-2009, she had started an affair with Gareth Jenkins, an old school friend she got back in touch with on Facebook. She asked for a divorce and ordered that Landry, who was suffering from prostate cancer, pay $6,000 for a new flat for her and Mr. Jenkins to move into. In the days before her death, the pair constantly rode over money. She saw him as mean and unfair, refusing to bow to her financial demands and balking at her aggressive and violent behavior. The low was reached on February 1st. In the presence of a neighbor, Mrs. Landry teased her husband over naked photos he had taken of himself 3 months earlier that she found on his computer, calling him a pervert and taunting him that he should be on the sex offenders register. That night they fought fiercely, following each other around the house, shouting and taunting over money, belongings, and Mr. Jenkins. When Mrs. Landry approached her husband about money again in the kitchen, he snapped, picking up a granite rolling pin and smashing her head with it. Blood pouring from an open gash in her face, Mrs. Landry fled, only to be followed upstairs onto the first floor when Landry picked up a kitchen knife she had flashed at him and stabbed her through the cheek. The pair fought in the hallway as Mrs. Landry tried to flee the house, but there was no escape when she did. However, she managed and ran out of the house to the garden. Staggering to their neighbors and yelling for help, Landry, who was dressed in his nightclothes and dressing gown, caught up with her and stabbed her repeatedly, leaving the knife in her as she died on the spot. He then got dressed, took a big bundle of cash, checks, bank drafts, and other papers, and drove to his girlfriend Rachel Wallbank's house nearby. He dropped them off, told Mrs. Wallbank, 42, she would not see him again, and walked back to the house where he was arrested. Landry showed no remorse as he was taken into custody by the police. His face was blank and emotionless. The officers were shocked by the brutality of the crime, unable to comprehend how someone could commit such a heinous act. The neighborhood was in shock and disbelief, struggling to accept the tragic events. A jury in Wolverhampton Crown Court sentenced him to 16 years in jail, and he will be 79 years old when he is considered for release. Jailing the retired engineer for life, Mr. Justice Foskett said the attack on Mrs. Landry at their home near Pershore, Worcestershire, had been unspeakable and unforgivable. Landry, 65, stood with his hands behind his back and showed no emotion as the judge told him he would only be released if the authorities decided that he no longer posed a threat to the public. The courtroom was filled with tension as Mr. Justice Foskett delivered his final remarks, condemning Landry's actions as a brutal and senseless act of violence. Mrs. Landry's family sat quietly in the gallery, their faces etched with grief and disbelief at the tragedy that had befallen their loved one. As the sentence was handed down, a sense of closure settled over the courtroom, but the scars left by this horrific crime would forever remain in the hearts of those affected. In a statement released by West Mercia Police, Mrs. Landry's family described the 38-year-old as a bright, beautiful, bubbly person who was much loved. The relative's statement read, "To have her taken away from us in this way has caused devastation to us all. We are pleased with the decision. It has been a tough year for everyone, but finally, justice has been given to Lucy. We thank everyone involved who has helped achieve this." The family showed thanks for the support they got during this trying time and stressed the importance of justice being served for Lucy. They also noted the impact her loss has had on their lives and how they will continue to remember her. The community also rallied around the family, showing an outpouring of support and solidarity. The news of the decision brought a sense of closure to many who had been following the case closely. The memory of Lucy will forever be cherished, and her legacy will live on in the hearts of those who knew her. They plan to honor her memory and keep her spirit alive through their actions and words. Despite the heartache, they find solace in knowing that justice has been served and that Lucy's legacy will live on in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. The family is determined to find healing and peace amid their grief, knowing that Lucy would want them to continue living their lives to the fullest. This story shows the horrific side of how divorce can end brutally and violently, leaving a family broken and mourning. The family's message reflects the importance of finding help and support during times of disaster, and the necessity of holding perpetrators accountable for their actions. As they continue to heal and celebrate Lucy's memory, they hope that others will learn from their loss and work towards preventing similar tragedies from occurring in the future. If you loved this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel for future more videos like this.